Second. Today is I Am Woman, and our discussion is on patriarchy and misogyny and sexism. And it is also true that sometimes these conversations, especially because we can identify as women, they get heavy. So, in order to add a bit of levity to our conversation, here's how this goes. One second. We'll go over our touch points and touchstones in a minute, because you all should be mindful of those. But for participation today, since it's a participation grade, when I say patriarchy, you yell down with the man. All right? That's how it goes. I yell patriarchy, and you all yell
down with the man.
Down with the man.
Damn right. All right. So, when I say misogyny, you say, don't hate the player. All right. So misogyny.
Don't hate the player.
There you go. Right. And then when we talk about sexism, well, let's get it on. All right. So when I yell sexism, you say,
let's get it on.
There you go. So because these topics are serious and they're real and they literally deal with our identity, and sometimes when we look at it through this lens, for me it can be overwhelming when I think about all of the things in our everyday life that are embedded with patriarchy, misogyny, and or sexism. So momentarily we will describe the difference between those three, but we're gonna watch a quick video first.
Girl,
let me know if you can't.
Girl child, can you remember who you were before the world told? Girl child, can you remember?
Okay, can everybody hear that? Okay.
Yeah.
Remember who you were before the world told you who you should be.
Deep down, I've always believed in myself and known I'm just as good as anyone else. But lately, I notice that the world treats me differently because I'm a girl. From sunrise to sunset, my sisters and I do chores at home, while my brothers get to do whatever they want. And I see my mother carry the full burden of tending to our family. In church, they don't like when I ask questions, so I've learned to sit quietly. In the street, I see girls who walk in fear, as mothers warn their daughters not to give men the wrong idea. Everywhere I look, the world tells me I'm inferior, but this does not feel true. What's going on here?
Girl child, you are right to question.
Who? Do I know you?
I am your mother's mother and her mother's mother. I am the mother of all.
Then you must know why the world treats us this way. Please tell me, how did this come to be?
Well, it is complicated, and there are many overlapping theories, but we do know that these traditions were man-made long, long ago. It was not always like this. In the beginning, men and women walked side by side together, valued equally as hunters and gatherers. Eventually, we began to settle down. And around this time, we elevated the idea of property and the need to own land and control a workforce. Men became protective of what was theirs, which led to fighting. Sexual violence against women became a weapon of war. Conquerors enslaved women as concubines. Men felt entitled to own and take on many wives, even in times of peace. As their wealth grew, so did the desire to give males an inheritance. Girls came to be seen as property, valued primarily for their sexual purity and ability to have children. They were exchanged between families for a price. Many girls were subjected to traditions aimed at preserving their purity and family honor. Many are still practiced today. It is this domination that gave birth to all forms of slavery and how women became the world's first slaves. It is how patriarchy and the ethic of male honor became the norm. Patriarchy was woven into our civilizations, our laws, economies, philosophies, sciences, and especially our religions. It is everywhere, and it is invisible. It's no accident that we replaced ancient images of God as both male and female with images of God as a man.
But haven't we made progress since those times?
In some ways, yes. But in many ways, we're still moving in the wrong direction.
But what can I do when patriarchy is everywhere? I can't turn my back on my family or on my faith.
There is a spiritual path to liberation in the Bible and other religious traditions, but we must be brave and question what isn't working. Women and men, girls and boys, even the earth itself are suffering under the domination of patriarchy. To heal our land, we must bravely untangle our traditions from this oldest oppression. What was made by our hand can also be unmade. We must keep walking the Exodus path from slavery to the freedom of the Promised Land. Imagine if we could re-know the beautiful world that was meant for all God's children.
A world where girls can grow up feeling safe and equally valued?
A world where both boys and girls grow up to be all they were meant to be. Girl child, your curiosity has set you on a path many others have walked before you. Because of their work, we know the way forward, but there's a lot more to do and more truth to discover. Are you ready to take this journey with me?
All right. Are you all ready to take this journey with me? All right. So, patriarchy, as far as the definition, in order to be able to define our conversation, is a system of society or government in which the father or eldest male is head of the family or the descendant traced through male lines, right? This is a system where government in which men hold the power and women are largely excluded from it, or a society or community organization on patriarchal lines. Now, in today's society, we know that there are things different, but we can know that America is a country based on patriarchy. Even when you look um, at when we were still enslaving individuals, all right. Um, Patriarchy favors men, and so that's just as simple as that. Additionally, like during slavery or your race or ethnicity was based on your father, right? So if you had a father, whatever your father was, is what your race was supposed to be. However, because of this, because there were so many slave owners impregnating slaves, what happened was they changed lineage to then go through the mother, right? Because if their fathers were white, then their offspring would be considered white and they were able to be free. They were being liberated. At which time America changed race and ethnicity to then be counted through maternal lines, which means if your mother is a black slave or an indigenous slave, you are a black or indigenous slave, and therefore liberation was no longer attainable, right? What patriarchy looks like in today's society is can be very different, right? Patriarchy is about the social relations of the ruling class. Patriarchy specifically looks like the fact that men do not have to question or have any questions if they go in for a vasectomy today. They can go in for a consultation and have a vasectomy the same day. For any of my women on this call who've been married and have asked for a tubal ligation, if you are married and you would like a tubal ligation, you must also have the signature of your husband. That is what patriarchy looks like. For you not having autonomy as far as it attains to your reproductive rights, even in today's time, right? Um, and so even if you are, let's say 22 and you want to have a tubal ligation because you're like, I never want to have kids, and no, I don't want to have kids, you are still, according to most doctors, they will not do it before a certain age, and typically still won't do it unless you have at least one child. Um, because again, men said women should want the children, right? And you just aren't thinking straight at the moment. And thus, we need to give you a little bit more time to think about it. Not that you've made a decision for yourself and your body and that you already know what you want. That's not possible. So when it relates to power, we look at our look at the legislation that's going on right now as it relates to Roe versus Wade. The average American believes that women should have the right to choose as far as it relates to autonomy over their own body. You don't have to believe in abortion to believe in bodily autonomy. Does that make sense? Right? You don't have to agree with someone's decision to do so. It is only their right to do so because it is their body. It's no different to me than deciding whether you agree that receiving a vaccine is someone's right or not, right? I get to decide whether I am vaccinated, but like I tell people, there are very fine people on both sides. There are vaccinated axe murderers, right? And there are unvaccinated, kind, religious people. Okay. So there are there are both very fine people on both sides, to quote our previous president. But bodily autonomy is what that choice comes down to. Right? And more often than not in America, that bodily autonomy is placed in the hands of men. So the thing is, we used to have very different laws in the sense that women could not own land. Um, of course, there were no same-sex spouses. We're not. You used to have to get your husband's signature to even get a credit card, or even to work. So, is patriarchy dead? That is my question to you all. Is patriarchy dead? Since we can own land and credit cards and work, and you know, if so, why? If not, why not?
Hi.
Hi.
Um, I think that if patriarchy were dead, we wouldn't have, well, I could list dozens of things, but we wouldn't have the Supreme Court justice um, discussion and decisions leaked. And basically, as my mom said, um, we women got reverted back to a second class citizen. I mean, with that one release of the document, broke her heart from all the days she was burning her bras and demonstrating, and it's clearly not dead, in my
Okay.
opinion.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I I have very strong feelings on this topic. My husband, who is very aligned with my views, we have significant conversations about this topic exactly as it pertains to me, where he's just blind to it because it doesn't affect him. So the fact that I still have to, with somebody who believes in me and believes is in alignment with my values, but still doesn't see the injustices and discrepancies, it's very much alive. But I will say there's hope. My two boys and my oldest daughter were watching that video, and one of my boys said, "This is sad." And my daughter said, "I'm just so glad it's not like that anymore, that boys and girls can play together." So while we are still fighting tooth and nail, the younger ones are not yet aware of that and feel that that the patriarchy is dead. So the dead word, I think, is strange for them. But I think that there's a hope that we can continue to normalize and empower the female for equality, and that they will recognize that one day it could be dead.
And I can't remember. Did I already? Thank you. We may have watched this video in here already. If not, I'm going to play it one more time. Did we watch this one together already? Okay. Let's make sure that we have sound. One moment. All right. Okay, I keep doing the same thing. All right.
Hi, Aaron.
There we go.
Hi, Aaron.
Hi.
Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna just give you some actions to do. And just do the first thing that comes to mind. Show me what it looks like to run like a girl.
My hair.
Show me what it looks like to fight like a girl. Now throw like a girl.
Aw. My name is Dakota, and I'm 10 years old.
Show me what it looks like to run like a girl. Throw like a girl. Fight like a girl. What does it mean to you when I say run like a girl?
It means run fast as you can.
So do you think you just insulted your sister?
No. I mean, yeah, insulted girls, but not my sister.
Is like a girl a good thing?
Actually, I don't know if it's a bad thing or a good thing. It sounds like a bad thing. It sounds like you're trying to humiliate someone.
So when they're in that vulnerable time between 10 and 12, how do you think it affects them when somebody uses like a girl as an insult?
I think it definitely drops their self-confidence and really puts them down, because during that time they're already trying to figure themselves out, and when somebody says you hit like a girl, it's like, well, what does that mean? Because they think they're a strong person. It's kind of like telling them that they're weak and they're not as good as them.
And what advice do you have to young girls who are told they run like a girl, kick like a girl, hit like a girl, swing like a girl?
Keep doing it, because it's working. If somebody else says that running like a girl or kicking like a girl or shooting like a girl is something that you shouldn't be doing, that's their problem. Because if you're still scoring and you're still getting to the ball on time and you're still being first, you're doing it right. Doesn't matter what they say. I mean, yes, I kick like a girl and I swim like a girl and I walk like a girl and I wake up in the morning like a girl, because I am a girl. And that is not something that I should be ashamed of. So I'm gonna do it anyway. That's what they should do.
If I asked you to run like a girl now, would you do it differently?
I would run like myself.
Would you like a chance to redo it?
Yeah.
Why can't run like a girl also mean win the race?
So, in full disclosure, the first time I watched this video, I cried. And I cried because if someone had asked me to run like a girl, I'd have done exactly what those young ladies did. And it hurt. The truth of that hurt. And we talked about this last week. So, what did we see at the beginning of that? Internalized what? Like, that is what we saw. We saw that those women had internalized the sexism and misogyny that we see in society every day. That's exactly what we saw. And then even speaking to Jenna, just said, my husband, he believes in me, he aligns with me, but he doesn't see, sometimes these other things that deal with the oppression of women. And that young boy said, I made fun of girls, but not my sister. And that's the exact same ideology, right? So by the end of that, I was like, other than the fact that I felt somewhat shamed, because I was like, dang, I would have done exactly what they did. When did that happen? Right? So now we get to take young ladies that are Jenna's age and talk about what that messaging even looks like. And instead of calling girls bossy, like you are so bossy, instead it's more like, you know what, Jen, you have real leadership potential. See the difference in that? Doesn't that make a huge difference? Not, why do you have to be so aggressive? It's more like you have assertive speech. Doesn't that sound different? Right? It's about the messaging that we receive, that we internalize these things, but that is also based on the dominant culture and women's benefit to society being baby makers and subservient to men. Napoleon Bonaparte, who said, women are nothing but machines for producing children. Right? Which means that Nicolette and him probably wouldn't get along very much, right? How's that? It is Nicolette that doesn't want that, right? Did we have that conversation last week? Yes. Okay, make sure. So, um, sexism, which is simply the prejudice, stereotyping, or discrimination typically against women on the basis of sex. So, patriarchy is based upon the system of society where it is ruled by men, dominated by men. Sexism is the result of patriarchy being um, the system that we operate in, which causes prejudice and stereotyping and discrimination. This is everything from the speech that we said, but it shows up in our behavior, our speech, our writing, our images, gestures, law practices, and policies, and our traditions. This is everything from men in work, men in professional settings not wanting to hire women because maternity leave means that they'll be out. When, if, most companies pay for paternity leave, I'm sure that those mothers would love for those spouses to be off with them as well, right? Um, this is everything from the images. Go ahead, Nicolette.
Hey, so I was thinking about this recently about speech and behavior when it comes to people's gender. A couple of years ago, I worked with all of our executive leaders in my organization to do DISC assessments. And it was super interesting that when we did it with the male leadership, it was very diverse as far as what types of leaders were allowed under those assessments. And then the women that I was working with, there was 4 of them in our director level. And every single one of them fell under the dominant leadership style. And then we did further exploration with that. And in that exploration, realized that they had started as very diverse leaders and all came to the same conclusion, that they had to take on certain dominant traits and dominant, I guess, expressions of who they are in order to be successful and to maintain those leadership roles. So I just think it's really interesting to think about it through that lens of sexism, or just through the lens of, female versus male.
Very much so. And more so, even as it relates to the workplace, it's who we promote versus who we don't. I'm going to briefly find this video. 1 second. As it relates to that, simply because it is not just our males in society that have the bias against females, right? This is a lot of times things that we perpetuate as a society, and it is not just based on the males. And we have studies that show that our females and women and even our non-binary can be just as biased as it relates to stereotyping. So give me a shot. And then we will go to misogyny.
He's the boss, she's bossy. The negative way women are perceived at the office in a new ad for Pantene that's gone viral. It's hit a nerve, so we set out to find the truth. Are women who act exactly the same as men seen differently? Listen to this woman. How do you feel about her as a job candidate?
I know the Windows operating systems like the back of my hand, no problem.
Now, listen to him.
I know the Windows operating systems like the back of my hand, no problem.
The candidates in these videos are actors in a Yale University hiring experiment. The resumes, identical. The interviews, identical.
I'm extremely good at
sizing up people quickly and then delegating responsibility accordingly.
The only difference is gender. But when it comes to who got the job,
I thought the male applicant had better soft skills.
I'd say the woman was arrogant and overselling.
In hundreds of evaluations, the female job seekers come off as more aggressive, are rated less likable, and they're less likely to be hired.
Isn't it a catch-22? You're supposed to be strong to get that job, and you're saying if you're too strong, you won't get it. You need to behave in this dominant way to advance as a woman in the workplace, but you're seen negatively because that's not how we expect women to behave.
And if you think this is just male bias, it's not. Both men and women doing the hiring made the same call.
I think there's a level of arrogance that becomes that might be okay to be a manager, but then there's a step above, and I thought she was slightly above that.
So let's talk. And when we revealed our study results,
I was surprised by my reaction.
What does that say about us? We have a long way to go.
So, it's a whole different presentation on that one, but we have a long way to go. And it's being mindful that that internalized oppression or that internalized patriarchy, that internalized sexism is the reason that the numbers look the same, whether it's our men or women during the hiring. It's the internalization of that. And whether we think that some women are assertive, but some women are bossy, or some women are strong, but other women are aggressive, right? Whereas we have men with those same qualities, characteristics, or traits, then they are seen with leadership ability, right? Misogyny is, it is simply, okay, go back. Misogyny is simply the dislike of, contempt for, or ingrained prejudice against women. So again, patriarchy, system where men lead or men are seen as the dominant, or higher as far as hierarchies are concerned. Sexism, prejudice against women, right? Misogyny, just think of this as hate for women. That is, it's simple as that. This is where we often punish women. This is what it looks like when we punish women for having characteristics that we don't deem to be feminine. In everyday communication, these are the things that it sounds like. These are the things that I hate. Like, I hate going to the store. They always rape me with the price. They rape you? Do they? We need to call the police. We need to contact someone if you are being raped in these stores. To say that and to use that word with the disregard for people who've experienced it, knowing that rape has been a tool of war against women since men have been fighting, it's just disrespectful. That this is one of those things that we need to completely remove from our vocabulary, if not actually talking about the act and survivors of the act. Who do I have to blank to get an XYZ around here? That is most certainly misogynistic, as it has boiled women down to their value being in their vaginas. Right? Don't use the word bitches to loosely refer to women. That is to each their own. I often use the B word with friends. That does not make it any less misogynistic. I am just being truthful. I would probably also lose my ish if someone called me one. All right? Someone who is not in my friend group or using it in the way that we use it. So doesn't make it any less misogynistic. It does make it situational, and you will still get fault. Asking women about starting families or marriage. We talked about this slightly last week. That is still misogynistic. It is perpetuating the idea that because I was born with a uterus that I must want to birth children. Mansplaining. I'm gonna not mansplaining to women because we all know what mansplaining is. So not even gonna waste my time with that one. Manterrupting. Also not gonna waste my time with manterrupting or mansplaining with women who I can guarantee have been mansplained or manterrupted at some point in time. So what does this look like in our institutional, interpersonal, and internalized behaviors? Internalized sexism refers to sexist beliefs that a person has about themselves. Honestly, this can be as simple as other women making blonde jokes. We know for sure that there is absolutely no link between competency, intelligence, and hair color, but making blonde jokes can be an internalization of such, right? When other women are making them about other women, especially when you hear blondes making them about themselves, right? This is the internalization of those ideas. And they can cause feelings of incompetence, self-doubt, powerlessness, and shame. But this is where feminism steps in. And I say, if we band together, many hands make light work. And they can't tell all of us to shut up, is kind of what I believe. So we get on one page and defend each other, and then we don't have to worry about those things. The internalization of sexism and misogyny can unintentionally cause women to collude with sexism. Research shows that the lower rates of women working in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics may be due to internalized sexism. This is women always being told that we're not good in math or we're not good in science, right? This is also not when we are taking the time to look at how we actually socialize our little boys versus little girls. Trying to get little boy, like trying to help individuals understand more often than not, little boys being good in math can often have to do with the fact that when they're born, we hand them blocks and concrete geometrical figures, but we hand little girls dolls. They're able to start visualizing spatial things, have spatial reasoning, putting this to this circle and this circle and this square and this square, and we give girls our Cabbage Patch dolls and Barbies, and we tell them to do different things. So it is not that that young girl couldn't have learned geometry as well. We just didn't hand her the blocks. See, it has nothing to do with her intelligence and everything to do with how we socialize them. Any questions so far? Because I know we move fast.
No
I don't
question.
have any questions, but
Is that me? Am I echoing? Was someone else talking? Doris, were you talking?
I was, yeah, I was saying something. Go ahead, go.
I think we said
Jenna.
the exact same thing at the exact same time. As I'm clearing our house and putting things away, the little stuffed animal that I was carrying belongs to my son, and the computer I was carrying belongs to my youngest daughter. So I am breaking that mold. Sorry.
I also want you to make sure that you hand your little boy dolls as well. We often are like, let's not let them play with dolls. And then
No, that's what I'm saying. The baby doll was my son's.
exactly like this, like you've seen men awkwardly hold children, like, what do I do with it? But if we had handed them dolls when they were younger, they would cradle dolls and babies just like we're socialized to do at young ages, right? So, and Doris, what were you gonna say?
I was going to say the statement that you made about blonde hair, it's a little different with Black women. I've been actually coloring my hair
You,
since.
you don't say. I have no idea what Black women. No, go ahead.
You actually get called the B word, or she's stuck up, snobbish, or and when you walk into a room, you get a second look from not only the men but the women too. So it's a level of boldness, and I don't know.
That is.
I don't want to say power, but
From
strength.
being blonde.
I'll say that is
Yes.
next. That's next week's conversation when we talk about misogyny noir. Misogyny
Oh,
noir is hate specific to Black women. No, I'm kidding. Okay, honey, I'm just saying that we're going to dig deeper into what she's saying when we talk about anti-Blackness and misogyny noir, because in this class we look at things through lenses, right? And so
Right.
this lens is how we as women are viewed, and then next time we are going to break down how our Black and Indigenous women are viewed through those same lenses. And because of that, the intersectionality of being Black and both female, right? Or being a person of color and both female. Okay.
Okay.
The feelings of being ashamed of being a female, like this is in workplaces when women don't want to say they're pregnant because they know how people are going to look and say and start instantly thinking about their absence instead of the joy that they might be experiencing because they get to grow a human, which two people sharing one body is not fun outside of sex. I'm just gonna go ahead and throw it out there. Like just, anyway. The point is that this is why we also shouldn't have to periods and menstruation is a natural thing. And having to whisper about it is also about patriarchy and sexism. Like, who told us that we should not be able to openly talk about something that happens to our body every month? I mean, every month. I am willing to bet millions of dollars. If men menstruated, you'd hear about it every month. You would hear about it every single time, right? So just being willing to just be mindful that not only are, well, we know periods are a thing, but period poverty. It's no different than if we're trying to move the needle on racial equity. We can't move what we're not willing to say or see, right? We can't move the needle on period poverty and individuals who menstruate who are unable to purchase, sanitary napkins and such if we're not willing to talk about it. right? Being uncomfortable shouldn't be the reason that we don't discuss certain things. Yeah. So institutional sexism as it relates to the government, legal system, education system, and the healthcare system. So examples of these in our government, that's everything from Roe versus Wade right now. That is women, people who don't have uteruses deciding what people with uteruses get to do with them. Right? It is that simple. The crime and punishment for rape. The fact that right now there are states where you could spend longer in jail for getting an abortion than for raping a woman is despicable. And that is based purely on misogyny and sexism. Right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Josh Duggar, is that his name?
Mm-hmm.
I just read that yesterday. Did y'all see that? He got 12 and a half years for countless hundreds of time of watching porn videos of toddlers being tortured sexually. He's got 12 and a half years. I mean,
Yes. Michael Vick spent longer in jail for dogfighting than the average rapist does. So that is based upon a system of patriarchy that has sexism and misogyny written into our legal system. The healthcare system, what does that look like? Well, women are more likely to be given a sedative than pain medication because they're not hurt, they're just being irate and emotional. Sexism. So, in our financial institutions, women are less likely to not only be given a loan, but the amounts that they're given is less when they apply by themselves versus when men apply by themselves, even when you account for the same salary, right? Um, media, media. What do you try to see? Okay, we'll get there in moments. And then the other places that we see are examples in our workplace. It's going to be that wage gap, right? It is sexism. There is no reason, if we believe in feminism, which is literally equality of the sexes. And I don't want to burn my bra. It takes a lot to hold these up. I need this. All I want to do is find equality of the sexes. You know what I mean? So this is all I want to advocate for. And I want to wear my bra while I do it. But it's going to take not just women fighting for feminism, it's going to take men and male allies in order to make that happen as well. And that's just the truth of it. If we did not have male allies, Susan B. Anthony would still be standing outside on those steps talking about we need the right to vote. There has to be a man at the inside of the table that says, maybe we should hear him out, or we'd still be asking for the same thing, right? That's why when we discuss things in here, we talk about the majority or dominant culture, and then we talk about it through other lenses as it relates to oppression and such, right? In media, what does this look like? This is I don't want to say my favorite. I absolutely hate that there is this virgin slut dichotomy in media more often than not. Or in short, a woman who does is a whore and a woman who does not is a virgin. This does not necessarily apply to sex. It could be applied to a way a woman dresses, acts, speaks, naturally presents herself, eats, or anything else. It is an entirely misogynistic construct and it is damaging. It is entirely devoid of the respect of anyone, and most of all, it makes no sense. In the psychoanalytic theory, this is referred to as the Madonna whore complex. Coined by Sigmund Freud, the concept refers to a man who cannot be sexually attracted to the saintly Madonna, the Virgin, and who cannot respect the sexuality of the whore. Right? In our current legal system, we arrest the prostitutes and not the men who are receiving or soliciting prostitutes. That is sexism, misogyny, and patriarchy all wrapped up in one. If prostitution is illegal, then you arrest the person that is seeking the prostitute. Wouldn't that make sense? That is what other countries with female-led nations have done, and they've seen the decline. The other part of that is, who are you to tell me I can't sell my vagina? That is also a part of bodily autonomy. If I tell people all the time, don't do anything you're good at for free. If this is what she is good at, let her be. Find a way to tax it like you're doing the marijuana, but you can't tell her she can't sell it. It's literally hers. It's hers. It's his. It's theirs. The point is, advocate for sex workers because it should be a thing. Sex work is the oldest profession, and at the end of the day, you should most certainly be able to sell whatever you were born with. I mean, that's just simple as that. Any questions or comments at the moment?
I don't have a question, but I have literally been searching this entire time for this poem that I read this week that I absolutely love. Can I read it to you guys real quick?
Please.
Okay, let me switch screens here. Okay, it made me think of it a while ago whenever you were just talking about how people like basically like use derogatory terms or actually just, you know, regular vocabulary to I don't know, make females feel like they are inferior or use it to be vulgar, like the bitches thing and all that. And so this made me think of this poem that it's by, I'm not exactly sure how to say her name, Rupi Kaur.
Okay.
So I saw this week. It says, "Oh, but the pussy is brave, lest we forget how much pain the pussy can take, how much pleasure it delivers onto itself and others. Remember how it spit you out without a flinch. Now here you are using the word pussy like it's an insult when you're not even strong enough to be one."
That
Oh,
part.
I just love that.
Love it. I am often just frustrated. People like, put your big boy pants on and grow some balls. I'm like, balls are feeble pieces of skin. As Betty White said, you should be a vagina. Those things can take a pounding. All right. At the end of the day, anytime somebody can push something the size of a watermelon out through something the size of a lemon, I'm just gonna go with that's probably who the tough person is. That's just but just go ahead and just in general. All right. So when we think about it in religion, um, our current modern day religions have pretty much removed the female aspect as it relates to their deity and or them being equal to men. I'm trying to see if I can remember all of these now. So the I would be Gaia. If anyone knows who Gaia is, this is Mother Earth for the most part. So we often talk about our um, our goddesses in a very feminine way as it relates to bringing forth life. All right, this woman in front of me is Mama Water, who is she is a Yoruba goddess or Orisha, as you would call her. I used to know all of these by heart. Does anyone know the one on the end? I can't remember her. I'll send you the list of goddesses momentarily. I know this is Pele Pele. This is an example, or this is Isis, or one of the representations of Isis. The point is, we remove what you see after the birth of well, not just colonialism, but after the time of Constantinople, we began removing deities that were women, if you will, and relegating them to second class. So more often than not, even if we still consider them to be goddesses, there is more often than not a god or male version that is of higher, higher in the hierarchy, right? In healthcare, what does sexism look like? This is Dr. Elizabeth Blackwell. In the 1980s, for example, only 21% of doctors entering the field were women. We are now a little under 50%, but women doctors are consistently paid less than male doctors and are often more likely to drop out of the field. So, this is, again, Dr. Elizabeth Blackwell. She was the first, Dr. Elizabeth Blackwell was the first woman to receive an MD from an American medical school. This is Dr. Rebecca Lee Crumpler. She is the first, in 1864, she became the first African American woman to become a doctor of medicine in the United States. And this is a woman I got to meet myself. This is Dr. Edith Thurby Jones, and she In 1948, 9 years before the Little Rock Nine Integrated Central, was the first Black woman to enter into medical school south of the Mason-Dixon. So she just passed away maybe 2 years ago. Um, and she is, if you know Dr. Jocelyn Elders, who was the first Black Surgeon General during the time of Dr. Bill Clinton, during the time of Bill Clinton, Dr. Jocelyn Elders' mentor was Dr. Edith Irby Jones. And Dr. Edith Irby Jones is and was an amazing woman, and absolutely, I mean, she's definitely a hero. What does it look like in politics? Well, misogyny in politics looks like when we spent more time worrying about this woman wearing pantsuits and going to the bathroom and how long she spent in the bathroom than her actual politics. That's all I have to say about that. Just her pantsuits, right? The issue with systems of misogyny, patriarchy, is that they breed rape culture. Rape culture is an environment in which rape is prevalent and in which sexual violence against women is normalized and excused in the media and in popular culture. Rape culture is perpetuated through the use of misogynistic language, the objectification of women's bodies, and the glamorization of sexual violence, thereby creating a society that disregards the rights of women's safety. All right. I like to say there is no little girl fast enough to catch a grown man that don't like little girls. Get it?
That don't like what? Sorry.
Little girls. There is no little girl fast enough. You know how we say, oh, she's so fast? There is no little girl fast enough to catch a grown man who doesn't like little girls. It's just that simple. It's not possible. What this looks like is everything from in the church. Unfortunately, I saw a woman that I used to really like when I was attending church. Her name was Reverend Juanita Bynum. And she was doing this rant on social media, and she just could not believe that women were coming to church with their legs oiled up and no stockings on, and they just looked like they could go over in a corner and lift up a skirt for the deacon and have sex. I am very confused by this misogynistic and sexist tone, because didn't the deacon choose to have sex in this scenario? Why did we just punish this woman for having the sex when there's an equal partner in the both chose to have relations? But we often see this when it's women shouldn't wear this and cause the men to lust. Wouldn't it be easier to tell and teach the men to not lust versus telling women what to wear so that the men don't lust? Doesn't that make more sense? Nicolette, excuse me.
I just read, I think it's called Unbound. It's written by Tarana Burke, and she's the one who started the Me Too movement.
Me Too, yes.
And I don't know if anyone's read that book, but it was a really interesting deep dive into her work around rape culture and her work around advocating for young women. And, I think it came off as a little accidental. Like she had been working on the Me Too movement stuff. But when it finally came out, it was because, a white woman celebrity had hashtagged something. But when you go deeper into her story and what that actually means, it talks more about her experience with sexual violence as a little kid, and then her processing that throughout her lifetime, and then the different things that she had done in order to push, women to be able to advocate for themselves and to listen to people's stories and to kind of overcome that. And even the things that happened with her, but also her daughter, even though she'd been working on this work, like her daughter also experienced it. And so I can't recommend that book enough. I think it's really an interesting look at the modern day rape culture that we're living in.
Yes, thank you. We're gonna also bring her up next week. God, that's not. I don't know why. That's not the funny part. I'm serious, Nicolette. I mean it, because the Me Too movement is gonna come up when we talk about why Tawana Burke had been doing that work for 2 years, but as Nicolette said, it was not until a white actress said this happened to me, that it took hold. But the use of the hashtag Me Too, there was 2 years that it preceded that, and her fighting and doing this work and hashtagging, trying to bring these things to light. But misogynoir and anti-blackness are next week, but we'll definitely discuss why we can still name 7 white actresses that, came out for the Me Too movement. But if I put up a picture of the black woman that started the movement, we'd be like, who is it? So, rape culture. Well, this is what I call, that's who they are. All right. They are the fuck consent crew. Um, This is, if you recall, the young man to my right. His father said that he should not have to go to jail for receiving 20 minutes of action. You mean the action where your son sexually assaulted a young passed out woman behind a dumpster? That 20 minutes of action? You mean where we blamed the young girls who R. Kelly assaulted on the young girls? Because only one of those 2 people are adults. Only one of the 2 are actually adults. And other than, not even trusting pudding pops from the man in the middle, I'm going to just go with this. This is our fuck consent crew. Charlie Sheen, who also has not yet not only been charged with sexual assault, but endangering the lives of women by having sex knowing full well that he is HIV positive, right? Which is illegal in some areas, but again, that's a different class. So what does rape culture look like? This is trivializing sexual assault. This is when little boys grab, or girls grab someone's genitalia and they say boys will be boys. No, that is sexual assault. We should not just say that that's how that works. Pressure on women not to appear cold, right? The reason we need to appear more warm. How many times did we honestly hear that? As it related to even when Hillary Clinton was running for office, right? That she needed to be more warm, more warm, more warm. But no one ever tells our male candidates that they need to be warmer, right? Assuming only promiscuous women get raped, assuming that men don't get raped and that only weak men get raped. No, men just report rape less. And more often than not, the conversation comes up that yes, they have a phallus, but fear can also cause an erection. So we need to also acknowledge that having an erect penis does not denote entertainment or consent or pleasure. Refusing to take rape accusations seriously, putting pressure on men to score, literally calling it score as though there's a tally to be kept. All of these things play a part in rape culture, or victim shaming, because there is not an outfit in the world that says that I deserve to be raped. If I walk outside ass naked and I say no, then the answer is no. It does not mean that I made a bad fashion choice, but I did not make a bad choice as it relates to my body and consent. So, how do we disrupt a rape culture? We're going to speak out if you hear someone else making offensive jokes. We're going to avoid using language that objectifies and degrades women. We're going to be respectful of others' physical space, even in casual situations. I teach my sons about our bubble, right? So my sons know that I don't mind them laying on me, but some days I don't. And I will say, I need you to get out of mommy's bubble. And they know that means bag, 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 bag. Give me 50 feet. Like I need space at the moment. So teaching even my young men that that's what consent looks like is where we go. This also, I want you all to be mindful of what that looks like, even in our families, right? More often than not, we may have children, and children are seeing family members, and we're like, oh, hug Uncle Joe, hug Aunt Sue. And they're like, no. And we're like, hug them, their family. No, that's a consent issue. If she doesn't or he doesn't want to hug this family member, forcing young people to hug family members is saying, even though your internal alarm is telling you, I don't want to hug this person, because that's what that is. It's not just being defiant at that moment, but making our children hug people they don't want to hug is a lack of consent. And it teaches them to disregard their own bodies and feelings. So Any questions, comments, or anything that you'd like to share about today's conversation?
Going back to the clothing, as we the new shift of attire has switched. Maybe it hasn't switched, maybe it's all been this way all along, but the very short shorts and the midriff showing and the crop tops, and it's younger and younger. Like my 6-year-old has a shirt that was given to her by a grandmother, ordered online, and when she got it, she said, oh, she just can't wear that, it looks like a crop top. And we hung it right up in her closet. And I said, and when she turns 14 and says she wants to show her belly, and I looked at my husband, I said, you'll be the one who takes her to buy the shirt that will show her belly, because we are not putting her in a place that she's going to, aside from feeling responsible for other people's feelings about her clothes, I don't want her to feel like she can't show her body, that there's anything wrong with her body, that her belly should be there for everyone to look at if they want to. So
if she wants to show it to everybody, you dang right, they should be able to look at her belly.
And if she doesn't want to, that's okay too.
And if she doesn't want to, that too is okay. It's also being mindful for us that literally women have the only, and I mean only, organ out of the two sexes strictly for sexual pleasure. I mean, we have a clitoris. It is literally 8,000 nerve endings of just nerve endings simply for pleasurable sex. You know what men don't have? A clitoris. All right. So punishing women for enjoying sex, for exploring their sexuality, for allowing their divine feminine to be exposed and showing exactly who they are and who they want to be is not only a very woman and feminine thing to do, but shaming her for doing such is not only patriarchy, but it's silly because we have clitorises. Just that simple. Science in and of itself says that women should enjoy sex. And they did not say that for men. How do we know? Because they don't have clitorises. And even so, the 8,000 nerve endings that in and of themselves are in the clitoris are not only spread out between the head of a penis, the under part of their scrotum, and then the shaft. They're all spread out, so it's not in one place. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So the all of the tissue and nerves that make up our clitoris is spread out all over theirs, which means they in no way have the same feeling that we have. So
I was just going to say that I think this conversation is interesting because for a lot of aspects of the conversation, there's so many moments where I think we've tried to flip it and reverse the script, and I don't think that we've necessarily solved the problem. We've probably muddied the waters. So for I don't know how many of y'all are on TikTok, but there's this whole new hoochie daddy shorts thing that when you see men out with their hoochie daddy shorts, which are like shorter, where you see, thigh meat, as they call it, that you should, call them out and whistle at them and basically catcall them in the same way that women kind of experience that energy. And you see that in a lot of different things. So the video with, run like a girl, and so now you have these literal icons, Serena Williams, who are taking that and really flipping it on its head and showing women can be strong and play a sport really, really well. At the same time, she's being kind of called out for having a man body or an aggressively, what people consider to have like an aggressive shape, versus being feminine. And so, thinking about Jenna and kids and like thinking about my nieces and nephews, where do we go from here? How do you have these conversations with children in a way that is helpful, because it is a full spectrum conversation, right? On the one hand, we want our daughters and our nieces to be really proud of being women, and if that means to be the princess girl, to wear the heels and wear the little click clack little kitten heels across the top.
And I was with you right up until the word kitten heels. No one should wear kitten heels. They're not cute. Okay, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead. Cool.
But the ones that I'm talking about, they're like pink with the purple little heart on it. She loves those things. She loves them. And I want her to embrace that. I want her to love being a girl, because I internalized not wanting to be a girl, and I did not enjoy or embrace that thing. I wanted instead to play with trucks, and she enjoys playing with trucks as well. So it's just, how do you create, that yes, be the girl that you want to be. And I think define that in this full range of options. And it really, as you know, you just started to hit on it, I think, with the idea of consent and wanting to hug relatives or not, it really has to be up to the child. And you know, if there is hesitation or reservation on any one aspect of that spectrum, then as the village in that child's life, understanding why, or you know, is there something that's going on that you're not telling me about, or is it something that you don't understand that we need to have, you know, a little bit more exposure and understanding with. It's just a really interesting conversation. I just don't know that as we, you know, challenge these things of being girl boss or girl gang, those things are helpful in that moment for that assignment. But again, to just limit it to that piece of the conversation doesn't give, especially children, right, a full range of options.
Okay. Yes. One, next week we're gonna talk about the objectification of Michelle Obama's uh Buffy the Body, Serena Williams, and Savage. Name is what? Savage. What's her name? Uh, Megan Thee Stallion. Boom. We're gonna talk about their bodies in relation to misogynoir and the hate that they face simply for being, you know, stacked. Two, it sounds to me like you started to answer your homework for reflection 2. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but that's the conversation that you get to have in your reflection piece. So remember what you said so that you can start thinking about what that looks like, because your reflection 2 piece is based about misogyny, and it'll come before the misogynoir conversation, but I may move it. If you'd like to be able to include misogynoir in your misogyny piece, then I may just change the due date so we can talk about that. Anyway, I'm amenable to that idea. But 2, it is getting to define what that looks like for each of us. What the divine feminine looks like and means to me can be completely different than what it means to Nicolette, what it means to Doris, what it means to Jen, and neither of those things are wrong or incorrect. I think that the space that we're talking about, or taking up space, the same way in discussion 1, where we talked about our whole authentic selves and coming to terms with our identity. And then in discussion 2, we talked about the internalization of oppression. Honestly, the conversation about what femininity, or how do we rid society of rape culture? Well, it's going to start with women. What difference does it make if Amber Rose wants to have a slut walk? Like, slut shaming her for having a slut walk is no different than men saying, well, she deserved to be raped. There is no difference between the two. Her deciding that she's going to be bold about her sexuality doesn't make her a whore. It means she has sex. And guess what? People been having sex a long time. So shaming each other and shaming women in the way that we often see in society, I think, is how we begin to move the needle, and allowing femininity and what a woman is and all of that not appear in one way. You know what I mean? Like, eventually women will begin to take up for other women when we hear women being asked about children and questions they don't want to answer. Women shouldn't have to answer that question every time. And eventually it'll be someone saying, you'll be like, oh, well, don't you want kids? And there'll be some woman across the street and say, don't you want to be flapped? And it'll be like, you'll know that, hey, this isn't okay to ask that woman that, right? Like, it's going to take us taking up for each other in radical ways in order for us to start saying enough is enough. So,
have y'all seen the Mindy Kaling show, the college girls who have sex? I think is that what it's called? College?
No, but I starred in that one.
Oh God, it is so good. Get ready. It's a comedy, but it is so serious. And I cried through every single episode, and I learned so much about my own experience, my own history, and things I didn't even recognize, sadly, at the time of what was occurring, until I watched it play out in these fictional characters' stories. Oh, honey, Mama's talking.
I feel so weird.
That they aren't fictional characters at all. It's every single one of us, these experiences. And it's this new age, these young college girls who are actually empowered to do the things that we were either we were made to feel ashamed of, that it was not that we were allowed to do it or not allowed to do it. We were called out on it and called names and things that we were made to feel that way on our own, even if nobody around us recognized what was going on. So it's just, and it's incredible. And it's an empowering show. It makes me at almost 40 want to go out and find some sort of liberating freedom experience for myself, but I can't, so as I've spent the entire evening talking about my husband, but it's like these incredible women who are not backing down from the patriarchy. So I recommend you all go watch it. It's incredible and
Is that
fun.
on Netflix,
It's
Jenna?
hysterical. Yeah, maybe. Hey, Austin, is that on Netflix? Maybe HBO.
HBO, okay.
And my husband actually, as I watched it, I don't know if he actually cried, but he recognized the experience that was real, and was very, I don't want to say comforting to me, but he recognized it. So
allyship should always feel like a warm feeling. That is what that should feel like. So if that's what you felt like, then that's what you get to call it. There's the allyship is a spectrum, just like anything else. And on some days it looks like affirming individuals, and on other days it looks like pure activism. So wherever that falls for you on that day, I mean, yeah, accept that. Also, if you are wanting to dig into tough material that's done in an artistic way, we can watch Lovecraft as a class for those who did not watch Lovecraft. Yes. As in, like, you haven't seen it or you want to see it? You haven't seen it?
I haven't seen it.
I
Okay.
saw it and loved it.
Okay, so you did watch it. All right.
I'll watch it again.
So we can watch Lovecraft. My friends and I frequently talk about it. I'm not gonna. We'll watch it. We have, we still have June together. So if you have HBO Max, then you can start watching it. If you don't, you can text me. I'll text you my passcode. I think I know what it is, and you're welcome to use mine. But we can. I don't know what these things are. But huh? Oh, well, I said we can start watching Lovecraft. It is a conversation. Was a conversation about history, race, and misogynoir and sexism. And it is, to me, a powerfully and it is a dynamic show done in. I also love sci-fi, so that also counts on witches, warlocks. As I told you, my wand sits next to me every day, and I conjure my Patronus regularly. So, I said, just saying, we can start on Lovecraft and then talk about it at the end of shows if you all would like to. Majority rules, because that's what equity looks like in this class. Is that what we want to do? We're gonna start Lovecraft. All right. Well, you have Memorial Day weekend to start. You can binge as many shows as you like, but we will only discuss 1 through 3 at the end of next class. That's it. 1 through 3. Do not spoil things in the thread until people have gotten to the third show. Are we in agreement? That's it. You can watch all the way until the end if you want, but only 1 through 3 are what we will discuss in the thread after we've given everybody time to watch 1 through 3. Okay? All right. Any other comments or